Hi, welcome to the Reddit room. Please have a seat. John will be with you in a moment to read some stories from the Entitled People subreddit.
Assault over a free car, posted by user Ankatrini. This story is about an old friend of mine. We're gonna call her Alice. A little backstory so things make sense. My husband and I both have decent jobs that we have been working at for a few years. At this time, we both drove nicer cars and lived in a big, but not necessarily updated home. Our cars weren't the fanciest. A 2014 Mustang and used Cadillac. But Alice lives with her mom and some of her children and hustles for a living. Alice has no vehicle. She seized up her engine, skipping oil changes, to buy grass. So, ours were nice to her. Alice was a little jealous and used to constantly make comments about how it was so unfair that we had so much compared to her. But like mentioned, we work hard for our things. Fast forward to tax time. She's expecting a decent amount since she's got 2 children in her custody. Even though she has no job, she plans on using the money as a down payment on a slightly used Chevy car. Since she has no income, she expects her mom to take the loan out in her name instead of Alice's. She said her mom shouldn't be worried because it'll be her motivation to work. Her mom doesn't agree but keeps that from Alice. Since Alice is living with her mom, with no job, her mom claims her and her children as her dependents on taxes and receives the money. Alice isn't mad yet though because her mom did agree to get her a car and she assumed she could manipulate her mom into the one she wanted. She was horribly wrong. Her mom told her a $22,000 car was too expensive for someone with no income and used a majority of the taxes to buy Alice a very nice used Nissan. This car had more options than my Cadillac, so I didn't see how she could be mad. It was a nice car. She was furious that she had to drive a piece of crap car and that she couldn't flex on her friends. She was so mad she pushed her 67-year-old mother who was holding her 1-year-old child. Her aunt saw this attack and called the cops. Alice called me to pick her up. And I did since she obviously didn't tell me the entire story. Once she did, I promptly took her home and luckily beat the police since I didn't know the severity of charges she could face. I left since I wasn't a witness. I wanted no part in that. No charges ended up being given, but I kind of wish there had been. But wow, assaulting your own mother while holding your small child over a free car. One of the many reasons why we aren't friends.
It probably was the grandmother's choice not to press charges. I feel so sorry for her having such a woman as a daughter. I don't get how some people's biggest ambition is being a parasite. Too bad being a mooch is not illegal, now that I think about it more. Alice probably wasn't angry at first because she probably thought she could get an even nicer car out of her mom than when she would buy one herself instead. I don't think a slightly used Chevy could have been better than a Nissan with some extra options on it.
Karen demands we let her through a fatal crime scene. Posted by Whip Solo. Okay, so I'll start by saying this story is from about 5 years ago, and my therapist mentioned it in passing as it was something I had spoken with her about years ago regarding my PTSD. I figured it's finally time to post this gem of a woman's story. It's around 11 p.m. on a Saturday night and I'm sitting at home just getting ready to go to bed. I'm an on-call tow truck operator and figure I'll be going out early the next morning. Right as my head hit the pillow, my two-way radio chirped.
Hey OP, are you still awake?
Yeah, I'm up.
Good, we've got a 1-car accident in the next town over. Police department wants it expedited, so please hurry but be safe.
11:04, I'm out the door. After a roughly 20-minute drive I'm headed out of this small town looking for the accident and I see it. The coroner and forensics vans parked in the road amongst a dozen squad cars. A typical 1-car accident has one officer sitting with it for paperwork reasons with the tow operator. Obviously I know things just got a lot darker than I had originally been told. Sparing the gory details, what had happened was 6 kids between 17 and 20 had been in an SUV while driving drunk and only the driver had a seatbelt on. The vehicle went rolling down the road and all 5 passengers were ejected and went to sleep on the scene. I start to work with forensics and coroner to remove the vehicle from the ditch as well as preserve as much evidence as possible. No sooner than I get this wreck on my truck do I hear frantic beeping of a car horn. I turn around and directly behind me is a woman who looks to be in her early 40s who is now just holding the horn down, letting it blare non-stop as she's yelling out of her window. I ignore her and turn around to go back to this delicate job I'm in the middle of, wondering how Karen had gotten past the police roadblock that was roughly a third of a mile up the road at the nearest intersection to keep traffic out of the area. As I'm slowing maneuvering this 8,000-pound vehicle from the roof onto its side, the honking stops. Maybe 8 seconds later I feel a hand grab my shoulder and attempt to spin me around. I'm 6 feet 3 inches 280 pounds, so there is absolutely no way this 40-something 4-ish 160 pounds woman is achieving this goal. I let out a sigh as I stopped winching on the vehicle and looked at the sky with my eyes, asking every god I can think of for the strength to not headbutt this woman. I turn around and attempt to say,
"Ma'am, the road is closed due to a fatal accident."
I don't care what you have to say, just get out of my way, I'm late.
Me, extremely annoyed now and talking over Karen's continued complaints.
"Listen, woman. 5 people just went to sleep here, and there is absolutely no way anyone is driving down this road for hours. I suggest turning around and driving back through the police roadblock you somehow got around, now."
Karen, opening with that line that we've all heard 1,000 times.
Excuse me, I live right there.
Points back behind her vehicle.
And I have to use this road to get to where I am going. You will move your truck now, or I'm calling the police.
By this time the forensics crew has heard all the yelling over the loudness of my truck idled up and the PTO engaged and walked over. Forensics crews do not dress like police, especially in the middle of the night on the weekends. They're dressed in plain clothes, but carrying a badge on them, and they'll put on a hazmat-style suit if needed. None were needed on this scene, just gloves and such.
Which one of you is the manager? This man won't move his truck and let me through. I'm calling the police.
Is actually holding the phone to the side of her head and talking to what we would later find out was 911. Forensic officer.
"Ma'am, I am the police, and I don't know."
I don't want to hear any more excuses. Move the truck now.
"You dumb woman, do your 2 remaining brain cells constantly compete for 3rd place?"
Forensic officer.
"Ma'am, if you don't get in your car and leave this crime scene, now you will be arrested."
Just as the forensic officer finished saying this, a squad car came screaming down the road from the same direction Karen came from and stopped behind her vehicle. The officer hopped out of his car and the very first words he said were Karen's Miranda rights. Karen screamed, kicked, swore that everyone else should be arrested and even tried to spit on me, which caused her to catch a tampering with evidence charge as we're on an active crime scene. By the time it was all done, her other charges were obstruction, assault on an officer, misuse of 911, interfering with an investigation. She took a deal that netted her 18 weekends in the county jail. However, I did tow her car as well. Monday morning I met her husband and he couldn't have been more embarrassed as he apologized over and over as he paid me and then inspected the vehicle and signed off we didn't damage it. The impound cost roughly $600 as it was police initiated, after hours and storage. Charges were $150 impound, $50 after hours, $52 a day storage and $5 a mile each direction from our office. Our office was roughly 15 to 17 miles from there.
Wow, this Karen really got what was coming to her. I feel sorry for her husband for having to put up with her. Also, let me calculate how much she had to pay in total. Okay, so she got arrested Saturday night and her husband got the car Monday morning. That would total to roughly a $1,000. Let's not forget the 18 months of her life in county jail.
Entitled cousin wanted me to do her master thesis in 2 days. Posted by A. Chem in Love. I, 18 female, am a freshman in college. My cousin, 30 female, is taking up her master degree. She had to pass a thesis paper. The thing about my cousin is that since she was the golden child, she could get away with anything. She just throws money at someone to have her way. Someone taking up a master's degree, wanted me, a freshman, to write her thesis. We all know that this is unethical and it would get her barred from graduating if her professors knew about it. But since I was curious, I asked her what she needed help with and when the deadline would be. She told me she wanted me to write her thesis. I said I could help her, but not to the point of doing the whole thesis. She told me it was already due in 3 days, but she can pay me well. I asked her how much and she offered me $20. $20 for a whole thesis that's due in 3 days. For context, academic writing services in our country is around $2,000. That's just the base price, so rush pricing is a lot more. It also takes at least a month to make. This makes the task not only impossible, but she'd also be grossly underpaying me. I declined. Obviously, I was just curious to see how much the pay was going to be. Also, I wasn't well versed in the field she's studying in, so I don't know how she thought I was going to help her. She threw a fit and told me that if I wasn't going to do it for her, I needed to find someone that will. I looked for groups that takes up academic writing services, but she refused. I think she knew that if she were to ask a professional to write her thesis, she'd have to pay a lot more. She wanted some that I personally knew so she could just pay them a similar amount. I just ended our conversation by saying that I still had a lot of requirements to pass and that I was already spending a lot of time looking for people to do her thesis. I don't know what happened to her thesis though, and I never bothered to ask since. Edit, sorry. I think I should have been clearer. She wanted me to write up a draft that she could pass to her professor. Her words were, "I just need something I can pass so my professor has something to check." It was still the thesis, but only the draft. She also said she'd give me the details of her study, but I don't think she knows how long it takes to research for related literature alone. Also, I looked for academic writing services for her so she could see how low her budget for that kind of thing is. I can't really say no directly to her since our culture is more family first, and being the youngest in that side of the family, I had to listen to what everyone says. I also don't want to cause trouble and rip the family apart even more. I'm actually just waiting for quarantine restrictions in our country to be lifted so I can move out and finally go no contact. Which was my plan since I was 13, it is a long story. I just didn't want them to have something to say about me when I finally go no contact. Less trouble now, less trouble in the future.
It seems to me your cousin totally knows what she is doing. She knows her culture and is abusing it to her advantage. You also said she doesn't seem to realize how long it takes to find literature that relates. But I think on the contrary, she is in her final year of her master. She had to have looked for literature to get to this point, right? I think you are totally justified to go no contact as far as I know. I can only imagine what other aspects they try to use you for. You're not done listening to the Reddit Room? Click here for the next video. And subscribe for more content.